Hello, everyone. So today I'm going to walk you through this wonderful infographic, Jumpstart Your Research at Lehman College. Zora Neale Hurston, the one and only, kind of captures why research is so essential to the writing process. Research is formalized curiosity. It is poking and prying with a purpose. And these five resources that I'm going to share with you are meant to direct your research with purpose. Anytime you feel like you have writer's block or you're not quite sure what to write about, it's usually because you need to do more research. So how can you facilitate that process at Lehman? The first is ask a librarian. Uh, Lehman offers a 24/7 text/chat/phone support system. You have access to a librarian basically at any time of the day. So that includes right now. It's about 7:30 p.m. on a Sunday. So let's say I want to chat a librarian and they prefer the chat or email from what I've been told. So let's say I want to chat. I will leave my name, Matt C. My question, what should my question be? I am researching corporate responsibility in the 1980s. Could you direct me toward resources on how Fortune 500 companies, especially McDonald's, responded to apartheid in South Africa? So this is a research question. It is fairly specific. The more specific your question is, the better chance that a librarian will be able to direct you towards useful resources. So they're connecting now, and we will see a live person eventually on the other side of the screen. While that is occurring, so Ask a Librarian is a way to jumpstart your research. While that's occurring, there are databases that you have access to as a Lehman student that kind of go beyond Google Scholar or Google. Google, of course, is a great resource, but to support your own writing, to really challenge your thinking, make yourself go deeper with thinking and just be more creative, it's better to use databases that people really respect. One is CQ Researcher or Congressional Quarterly Researcher. So when you click on this link here, you'll be taken to CQ Researcher. This is used by the US Congress when a senator or a representative wants to know about, let's say, prison abolition. The senator might type in the keyword and relevant documents or research reports will be shared with them. So this CQ Researcher is a very authoritative site to collect information. You also have Statista if you need to know the GDP of China in 1970 or whatever research question you may have. Let's actually type that in, GDP of China in 1971. Let's save that. You'll find results that may or may not relate, but you can play around with it. The location focus here is the United States. So if I were to pursue this China question, I would type in China and perhaps get better results. Or perhaps not, because their research is a give and take process, right? You're not going to type in a keyword and magically be led toward precisely what you are searching for. You really have to play with the sort by relevance, the location, focus, your keywords. This might be too vague for Statista, but the goal of this infographic is to kind of point you toward the best databases and the best places to start your research. So Earlier, I was talking about Ask a Librarian. Let's go back to that page and see if the librarian has responded. The librarian has. We apologize for the delay. Lisa, we got Lisa. She is in Washington State. I'm helping your librarians answer questions today. How may I help you? Oh, Lisa, I already typed in my question. Okay, so sometimes you'll have to retype your question. But this time, you know who your audience is, so that's kind of cool. Hello, Lisa. I am conducting research about corporate responsibility in the 1980s. Could you direct me toward potential resources about how companies like McDonald's responded to apartheid in South Africa during the 1980s? And you can say how far into your research you are. So here I will say, I am beginning to research this topic. Something simple as that. Okay, so we sent that to Lisa from Washington State. She'll respond. So back to this jumpstart your research at Lehman infographic. I think I'll just say jumpstart your research. Other databases. So we have CQ Researcher, we have Statista, JSTOR. I'm sure a lot of people are familiar with JSTOR, Science Direct, Business Source Complete. When you click on any of those via this infographic, you'll be directed toward that database. JSTOR, I think it's JSTOR or JSTAR, I've heard it both ways. JSTOR is more for humanities research. If you're doing research about graphic design or literature, JSTOR is a great place to start. Science Direct, the name kind of gives it away. This is, you might want to talk about, let's see. I have no good keywords there. Recent COVID-19, oops, can't spell COVID. COVID-19 research. Let's see what happens. Probably you get a lot. You get 32,000 results. So to narrow those results, it would reflect on whatever you're actually researching. The more recent, the better. So you could refine it by the year, by a research article, as opposed to a review article, which usually is a summary. You know, you want research is more, a research article is more primary, a primary source. You've probably heard of that term before. Primary sources are more acceptable than secondary sources. Both are useful, but if you want to be excellent, go for primary sources whenever you can. So JSTOR is for humanities, Science Direct is for sciences, Business Source Complete for business, for social science research. It can be useful. Let's see if I can connect. Okay, I think there's something on my end here, so it's not connecting, but just know that Business Source Complete, when you click this link, it'll direct you to some fantastic sources. Newspapers, that's the third way to jumpstart your research. As a CUNY student, you gain access, free access to the New York Times, which is generally more liberal leaning, but very objective reporting in their news section, at least. But if you cite any of their, say, their op-eds, they will tend to be more liberal leaning. The Wall Street Journal also is objective in terms of news, but it is more conservative and it's more business focused. The Wall Street Journal is business focused. The New York Times is more human interest focused. And National Geographic is just great when anytime you're feeling down and you need to look at a giraffe. National Geographic is the place to go. No, they also do some fantastic first person reporting. And if it's reporting, it's considered a primary document. If the event has not happened, or if this is the first time the event has happened, it's a primary document. Sometimes people refer to the New York Times and the Wall Street Journal as the first draft of history. And that's because they report on events that they are new, they haven't been discussed at all yet. So this first draft of history is considered a primary document. Okay, and you have access to all of these 3 fantastic periodicals. Wayback Machine is interesting. It's great for visuals and brainstorming, kind of finding unusual information. And while I consider Wayback Machine, I'm reminded that I was chatting the librarian. So let's see what the librarian has responded to. So she said, thanks. I'll see what you have for business databases. Where have you been looking so far, or just starting? Your librarians prepared this guide for business research. So that's great. She pointed me toward a guide specifically for this business question. I just made this question up, by the way. My question was about corporate responsibility. During the 1980s, companies like McDonald's, for those who might not know, in South Africa, there was apartheid, which was like segregation between Black and white individuals in South Africa. And there were some companies took a public stance against apartheid and others did not. So that was my question, kind of random, not random, definitely interesting and relevant, but it's just for illustrative purposes. So Lisa directed me towards the business and economics database page. So these are more tools that I can use towards this question, specific databases that are all supplied by scholars. So this is powerful information. It's not random articles that you find on Google that might look relevant and powerful and important. These, you can rest assured, by and large, are reliable scholarly sources. Okay, so she pointed me towards that. She also recommended Business Insights, Business Source, and JSTOR are good places. JSTOR or JSTAR may be a good choice first, since it's interdisciplinary. It may be stronger for the social responsibility aspect. Have you been searching there or other places already? I can tell her, thank you. I have looked in JSTOR. She doesn't need to know that's a lie. I have looked in JSTOR, but I will search more through Business Insights and Business Source. Is there another database or author I should be aware of? I'm kind of throwing this question out. I don't expect the librarian will off the bat know of a specific author, but it doesn't hurt asking. So let's ask, we'll see what Lisa comes up with. Let's look at Wayback Machine. Wayback Machine is this Jumpstart Your Research at Lehman College kind of hints that, or not hints, it says, since 1996, volunteers for this nonprofit have taken screenshots of millions of websites. Wayback Machine currently has nearly 500 billion web pages on file. So this is what Burger King looked like the website looked like in 1997. The website now, of course, looks much different. It asks for your location for starters. I'm not going to give it to them. You can sign up. It's more interactive. You can choose your location. It's great. But back in the day, it was more static. Here, I'll type it in. Actually, I don't need to type it in. You can see right here from 1997. It was just a static web page. So if you wanted to look at McDonald's, and unfortunately, this only goes to 1996, but we can still see what the website looked like in 1996. What is on a website can hint what a company values. So knowing that, let's see how the company maybe responded in 2001 during 9/11. Did the company do anything? Let's see, September 7th. Let's see here, 1 second. All right, so here you can see McDonald's. There was a screenshot, September 17th, 2001. So I have no idea what the website looked like, but I am curious if it responded at all to 9/11. Doesn't look like it did. McDonald's response, oh my God, yes, it did. McDonald's response to national tragedy. So if you were to look into corporate responsibility in 2001, you might want to click on one of these sites, and it gives you a visual representation of what a company was doing in response to historical events. I'm kind of curious now. I'm going to click on that, see what happens. So you can see the corporate press release in response to 9/11, and you can see kind of some of the actions they did. All right. And again, research is formalized curiosity. It is poking and prying with a purpose. So with research, you're playing in the dark for a little bit. You don't know precisely what you are going to find. And that's part of the joy. It's a discovery. All right, let's go back to Lisa, the librarian from Seattle. Others in the guide may be good too, like Econ Lit or Business Economics and Theory Collection. Okay. And JSTOR, I was starting with this search. Oh, this is wonderful. She's offering specific keywords you can use. Corporations, apartheid, United States. That was assuming US focused. Is that what you had in mind? That's exactly what I had in mind. Thanks again. I will start reading more from these sources. Okay, so we're kind of wrapping it up with Lisa. With your own research project, if you wanted to talk more in depth with the librarian, you can. It might depend on which librarian you get. Some have more time than others, but most of them want to help you, and they're excited about your own research question. So it can be fun to go back and forth for however long, 15 minutes or so, and you receive a transcript of this chat. You will have it emailed to you. At the beginning of this video, I inputted my email. So it's wonderful that you get a copy of the chat. You don't have to copy paste the keywords as they are typed to you. You can refer to it later. Lisa said, sounds great. And JSTOR, using the subject filter sometimes helps, like business or American studies. Come back anytime soon. Anytime. Okay. Thanks. Have a great night. Afternoon, because she's in Seattle. Okay, so that's awesome. I'm clicking out of that. So we went through ways to jumpstart your research. You ask a librarian like Lisa. You might get librarians in Luxembourg, Thailand, Australia. It varies quite a bit. If you ask the librarian 9 to 5, Monday through Friday, you'll probably get a librarian who actually works at Lehman. But a lot of research, at least for students, I know when I was an undergrad, a lot of my research happened at night or early in the morning. So it's good to know that this is 24/7. So we talked about Ask a Librarian. We talked about different databases that you can use to deepen your thinking. There's a saying, you're only as good as your sources. If you find sources through Science Direct versus a simple Google search, the source might be better. Newspapers, the New York Times, if you're writing about some recent event, the news is the first draft of history. So you can use the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, National Geographic as primary sources for recent events. Or if, say, you're researching Nelson Mandela in 1989, when he was released from prison, I believe it was that year. You can fact check me if I'm wrong. But if you say the New York Times is writing about Nelson Mandela's release, that is news, even though it happened 30 years ago, it is still news in terms of primary sources versus secondary sources. So that's just good to know. Wayback Machine, you will be surprised at the creative visuals you'll find, the kind of demonstration of what was important to a company or an organization at the time. You know, what did it see fit to put on its webpage? It can be very elucidating. The final thing that this infographic covers is confirming credibility. You want sources that are recent, relevant, reliable, and reputable. And this is a checklist of questions you can ask yourself. Over time, you'll sort of internalize these questions so that you won't have to refer to this. But it's great to ask, what is the purpose of this website? Is it a satirical site like The Onion? Or that, for those who don't know, The Onion is a satirical site that some countries have actually confused for real news. This is all just satire. Let's see if I can find a good headline. Like this: American support for Indigenous Peoples Day significantly increases after learning it still is a 3-day weekend. So it's a jokey paper. You don't want to cite The Onion. I have had students who actually cited a satirical source. So just ask yourself, when you review material, when you consider associating your work with any website, ask yourself, what is the purpose of that website? Is it for jokes, or is it a repository of facts? You know, is it National Geographic, or better yet, congressional researcher, CQ researcher, in-depth reports on today's issues? Or is it a satirical site like The Onion? Purpose. Accountability. Can you identify who the group is or the individuals who wrote the information? Reliable information usually has a name associated with it, especially when you're an undergraduate student. We are not dealing with matters of national security. So the topics you research usually have an individual associated with it. And it's important to know the author, you know, has a similar root word of authority. If you're an author, you're an authority. So to know whether something is accountable, whether something is holds itself to accountability, you need to know who the author is. And if you're feeling I've never actually done this yes or no checkpoint, but if you really want to internalize this process, you can definitely tally yes or no, and then determine the total points on whether a source is credible. Is it current? If a website has only been around for 4 months, it might not be the most current, or it might not be a website to use, because authors take time to build credibility. And if it was created or if it hasn't been updated recently, it's probably not current. It might be fake. Uh, if the external links are broken, that's not a good sign. If there are many misspellings, that's definitely a bad sign. Content. This can be a bit more subjective, but content. Does the site have information that is relevant to my topic? Does the site use language and explanations I can easily understand? This is so important. The whole purpose of an education is to practice your own thinking, kind of sharpen your ability at critical thought. If you can't understand the source material, it's kind of like using tools that don't work. You know, it might be like using a golden hammer, but it's gold and you don't want to ruin it, so you can't actually use it. Maybe that's not the best example, but I'm getting to this idea of you're only as good as your sources, and you have to understand your sources thoroughly to really use them. Otherwise, you're just playing a game, a charade, and it's not a good use of your time. So last point on this credibility checklist: accurate. Have you verified the information on the site or two other websites, or using reliable offline sources? This is immensely important when you consider whether to associate yourself to an article, a newspaper article, a scholarly article. It's great to even briefly just double check the facts of the article, see if other people have drastically different views on an issue. If you, like in the pretend example I gave with corporate responsibility in apartheid during the 80s, there are strong differing views on that topic. So it's to get a fair assessment of what the situation was, you need to cross-check your own references. All right. So let's go back to the infographic. Again, this is just a nice place to start, to jumpstart your research. If you're feeling like you're not sure what to write about, or maybe you've written a page and you feel like you don't know enough about the topic, you can ask a librarian for more specific resources. You can visit a database like Statista if you need more numerical information. You can visit a newspaper like any of these three that you get access to as a CUNY student. Oh, I should point out that if these, for whatever reason, if these links don't work, you can still gain access to these sites by going to Lehman 360, which we all have access to. Lehman 360, you scroll all the way down, and then you can see you register for free for the New York Times, National Geographic, or the Wall Street Journal. Okay, we covered Wayback Machine, and then we covered ways to confirm credibility. All right. I hope this was helpful. This is not, of course, the infographic that will answer all your research needs, but it's a great place to start because research is, as Zora Neale Hurston said, formalized curiosity. It is poking and prying with a purpose. All right, take care.